Welcome to Mrs. True Crime. Today's video is an in-depth look into cult leader Goel Ratzon. It's a tale of manipulation and power. If you are triggered by anything dealing with rape, feel free to click off this video. Perhaps check out my gaming channel, Retell Me Games, for some lighthearted content. If not, I'm Nicole. Let's get started. Why do parents tell their children not to say shut up, but instead say be quiet? I mean, generally speaking, don't they mean the same thing? You want silence, right? So you're telling whoever to not say anything anymore. So why does shut up sound harsher than be quiet? Is it the way it's said? You can shout be quiet and probably have the same effect as shut up, I'm sure. Maybe it's not about tone at all, but the connotation we've implemented onto these words. A lot of things can suddenly change because of the connotation associated with it, and it doesn't stop at words. It could be music, names, even people. For example, when some people hear the title Savior, they may think of Jesus Christ. But for about 100 women and children in the Tel Aviv district of Israel, their Savior meant Goel Ratzon. In Hebrew, Goel means Savior, and the now 68-year-old man took this to heart. Combining the teachings of the Jewish tradition of spiritual wisdom known as Kabbalah with healing, Goel Ratzon built a spiritual reputation for redemption in a local center in Tel Aviv. It was here he met, charmed, and manipulated roughly 32 women into believing he was a Messiah. In his own words, he thought himself perfect and everything a woman wants. But the Israeli police and social services thought the complete opposite. In fact, the authorities knew a great deal about their local spiritual healer, but couldn't act upon it. Sure, Ratzon's lifestyle wasn't exactly normal, but as far as authorities could see, he hadn't done anything illegal. But, of course, there's always more to every story. The compound Ratzon grew began around 1980 with the addition of a second wife. Over the years until 2010, he would continuously add more women into his living quarters. The quarters in question were stationed in a 3-story block in the Hatzakava area in Tel Aviv, housing between 4 to 5 women in each home. Authorities will report that the homes were cluttered with dirt and junk, though it seemed that the women didn't mind their living arrangements. Their idolization of Ratzon became so profound that if he got angry or disappointed with them, they would attempt suicide. Some would swallow pills while others slit their wrists. Ratzon told them, "When I die, you are to lead peaceful and constrained lives, but if the state of Israel harms me, go out and strike them as much as you can, even at the cost of shedding your own blood." Neighbors will report that the women were always modestly dressed, though quiet, and kept their heads down. That is, unless someone had something rude to say about Ratzon. All the women were quick to jump to his defense, shouting and screaming at anyone who slandered his name, even if those people were their own family. Ratzon ran his household like a state, upholding principles, order, and laws, one of which was cutting ties with their family. Once the women gave up their past and devoted themselves to Ratzon, he provided them all with a cell phone, used to text him when they were ovulating, and had them get tattoos of him on various parts of their bodies. His name would be written on their necks or wrists, while a portrait of his face was on their arm. Along with this, Ratzon had a strict rule book that all the women had to sign. It's uncertain how many rules Ratzon had, but they ranged from small things such as no drinking or smoking to bigger things like prohibiting communication with men, sitting idle when there are chores to be done, or only speaking in the public areas of their home. Each rule came with a fine covering between $50 to $500, not that the woman had much money to begin with. Between the 32 or so women, there were at least 80 children, all fathered by Ratzon. Every child has a variant of his name, such as daughter Tihalat Ratzon, meaning Ratzon's glory or glory of our Savior, or son Avenue Ha-Goel, meaning our Father the Savior. Every time Ratzon entered the room, the children were required to kiss his shoes and worship the tattoo of his portrait on their mother's arm. The children, by all accounts, were healthy and well taken care of. They were always on time for school and never got into trouble. Neighbors claimed the children were quiet, though sometimes can be heard crying. They dressed in modest clothes and didn't attract attention, much like their mothers. There was always someone to take the older children to school and someone to stay behind with the younger ones. This is how a great deal of the women made their wages. They claimed benefits for being stay-at-home parents, while the select few worked as maids for female employers. The wages they earned went into Ratzon's pockets, but the women found no flaw in this. The families of the women, however, did. As far back as 1997, many of the family members filed complaints, but because the children appeared healthy and there wasn't any legal documentation linking Ratzon with any of the many women in his home, there wasn't much the officials could do, and Ratzon knew it. So maybe that's why in January 2009, he allowed a documentary on his lifestyle to be broadcast on Channel 10. The film showed an array of women sharing their stories and why they loved and stayed with Ratzon. The minute you look at him, he broadcasts tranquility into your eyes. Said wife of Frat. He is the Messiah everyone is talking about. He is already here and he hasn't been revealed yet. The day he decides to reveal himself, the land will shake, stated another wife. Throughout the film, the women are seen brushing Ratzon's hair, trimming his beard, and doing daily chores. At the end, he would ask one of the women if they would like to go to bed with him, in which they would reply yes. But over time, some of the women lost interest and left the compound. In a trailer for the film Etched in My Body, based on 4 women, all kin involved with Ratzon, the youngest states that at age 15, Ratzon began to sexually harass her. He would touch her and kiss her to her discomfort, and she would go home and swallow rat poison. She wouldn't be the only one who Ratzon would treat this way. In June 2009, after the airing of the documentary, the daughter of one of Ratzon's wives filed a complaint. This led to her mother and Ratzon being arrested on suspicion of introducing her to Ratzon at the age of 14 on purposes of sex. A new Israeli law against human trafficking makes it a crime to hold a person in conditions of slavery. Danit Karen, the director of the Israeli Center for Victims of Cults, convinced the woman to come forward. She then worked in the compound as an agent for the police. The investigation took 6 months and involved 150 undercover police and social workers. They began to tap phones and start surveillance, and in January 2010, in a raid, Goel Ratzon was arrested. He was charged with enslavement, rape, incest, and extortion. Of these allegations, he said, "There was no slavery. We had warm relations. A woman does not stay in a place she is not pleased with for 15 years. Once the charges were brought forth against him, women began to emerge, stating his wrongdoings. An indictment in particular describes a 19-year-old he allegedly raped from 15 to 17 daily. He distanced her from her family, promising to marry her, and convinced her he had powers. He ignored her pleas to stop touching her. Days later, he took a shower with her and raped her. He then allegedly told her, "Don't worry, you'll get used to it," before forcing oral sex on her and raping her once more. In a 2000 interview, Ratzon was quoted as saying, "I took them all, not the attractive ones, but the most innocent and poorly, as they say." Though another publication has the quote as, "I took all of them. I did not take the reins, the most innocent and the most miserable girls, the way they say. I took the girls who already know a lot more than you think." Both are loosely translated. As the case went to trial and audio recordings and videos were brought to light, one of the wives of 5 years exclaimed she was disgusted at what she heard and refused to be gullible anymore. The trial began accordingly, with the offenses against 6 women who were all minors at the time of the allegations. Some of the women were daughters of Ratzon. His son Goel expected his father to receive 7 years at least for the charges. On October 2014, Goel Ratzon was acquitted of slavery charges, but charged with aggravated rape, sex offenses involving a family member, indecent assault. The Tel Aviv District Court sentenced him to 30 years. Along with his sentence, he is ordered to pay 330,000 shekels, or $87,600, to 5 of the victims. The 6th didn't testify, but received a home from Ratzon. He is also ordered to pay a woman 140,000 shekels for a debt he lied about, which added fraud under aggravated circumstances to his charges. Samidi, a woman who refuses to be considered Ratzon's former wife, said in an interview, "It is unthinkable that the court, who has heard all the evidence in court, will not convict him of the strongest clause of slavery, that our soul has suffered scars all those years we lived in. To me, it's just to make fun of the law. Goel achieved slavery without physical confinement and shackles. The scarred soul that we have left, which will never heal, is a significant damage that captivity has become inseparable from our identity." Of his sentencing, Goel Ratzon's defense lawyer, Vidal Kotzer, said that it was excessive and they planned to fight it, which they did. In mid-2016, Goel tried to appeal his father's sentence, but was rejected. He stated this rejection was only because the court was racist. He went on to say, "I regret that I was born Mizrahi. Let's put it that way. There are those who are not Mizrahi, and things go very well for them." Judge Hayuda Kachan stated that Ratzon mutilated the women's thoughts and castrated their personalities until they totally lost their free will. A loose translation of Samidi's interview states that she said, "I'm not sure I can trust, open up, share, lean. I see too much. I have too much experience. And this is the gift that will save me from the shadow of the next Redeemer." Ratzon is expected to die in prison. As for the women and children, some of them have managed to bounce back on their feet. Samidi moved back to the neighborhood she left before Ratzon and finished up her BA in law. Others have successfully gotten degrees, learned to live on their own, and removed or changed their tattoos. For the remaining women and children, the rewarded millions are reportedly still in trouble, finding it hard to support themselves and live with the trauma Ratzon left. They are said to be living in shelters for abused women in and around Tel Aviv. I've never really considered the meaning of names. I mean, connotation is one thing. Most of the time it's what we, either as a society or as an individual, place on something. But the meaning of it? Apparently, if you Google the meaning of my name, Nicole that is, it's Greek and Latin and means people's victory, or victorious people. Does this mean I'm going to be victorious in life? Perhaps I'll be a government official, or maybe something dealing with law enforcement. Then again, I'm content with researching crimes and presenting it to you all. Goel Ratzon wasn't content with just hanging out in his home and reading his Bible, and he wanted to make sure people knew that when he was named Goel, his parents really meant it. I'm Mrs. True Crime, and remember to be kind, be loud, be aware. For more information about Goel Ratzon, why not check out some of these awesome links? And if you like what you saw and heard today, why not drop a like and a comment? Maybe subscribe while you're here? I make new videos every Tuesday and Friday, and you don't want to miss what's in store.